short. On Cambodia's priority economic deliverables, PEDs, I am pleased to report that Cambodia is on track to complete all the 19 PEDs this year with the strong support of all ASEAN member states. At the ASEAN Economic Ministers track, I am pleased to highlight that the 5 of the 9 priorities economic deliverables under our purview have been successfully completed. These PEDs include work programs to support implementations of the framework for circular economy for the ASEAN economic communities, policy toolkits integrating provision focus on women entrepreneurship in ASEAN MSMEs policies, launch negotiations for an ASEAN framework agreement on competitions, launch of the ASEAN Trade in Goods Agreements, ATIGA upgrades negotiations, protocol to amend the ASEAN agreements on the movement of natural persons. It's pending on the signing of the protocol. I'm also pleased to note that the remaining PEDs are also on track to be completed within this year. Let me now emphasize that the finalization of these PEDs will ensure that ASEAN will have strong foundation for the region to enhance digital connectivity, science and technology, narrow the development gaps for ASEAN competitiveness, promote a more integrated, inclusive, resilient, and competitive ASEAN, and strengthen global ASEAN for growth and development. External trade and economic relations of ASEAN. The minister also discussed, noted, and endorsed key deliverables with dialogue partners, including but not limited to the progress of economic and trade cooperation frameworks, the implementation of existing FTAs +1, and the upgrades negotiations, the negotiations of ASEAN-Canada free trade agreements, and other implementation support programs. Other key achievements. Aside from our PEDs, I would also like to highlight some of the key achievements since the AM last met. Against the backdrop of rising inflations, gas prices, cost of living, and energy costs, the ASEAN economic ministers exchanged views and agreed on various topics and ways forward to provide relief and support to the regions in the spirits of partnership and collective actions on the basis of ASEAN unity, centrality, and consensus. The ministers recognize these global regional challenges, and the ministers reaffirm their commitment to implement all the activities in the ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Frameworks, ACRF, and look into possibilities of tackling these new challenges within the framework of ACRF and other mechanisms within ASEAN. Tangible meetings outcomes with respect to tackling logistics, bottlenecks, and pandemic recoveries include improving trade facilitation initiative in the region through the ASEAN single windows, ASEAN custom transit systems, and other initiatives that aims to ensure smooth flow of goods in the region. Extensions of the lifespan and expansions of the list of goods under the Memorandum of Understanding on the implementations of non-tariff measures, MTM, is a remarkable achievement which signals ASEAN unity and proactive response to ensure that markets and trade remains open and policy remains relevant to the new normal brought about by the pandemic. Improving ASEAN attractiveness as a trade and investment hub. That ASEAN remains open for business is one of the key messages that I would also like to emphasize at this point. I am pleased to report the following key decisions points arrived at during the meeting that I can further enhance ASEAN place as a global hub for trade and investments. Start of negotiation of the ASEAN Trade in Goods Agreements, review of the ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreements, finalizations of the joint feasibility studies report to enhance the ASEAN-China Free Trade Area, launch of negotiations of ASEAN Framework Agreements on competitions, finalizations of the upgrades of the ASEAN-Australia-New Zealand FTA, accelerations of the timeline to finalize a study of a possible digital economy framework agreements, and preparations of negotiating the ASEAN framework agreements for intellectual properties corporations. I will invite Excellency Savinder Singh, Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN, later on to expand on this initiative and share the views of ASEAN Secretariat on these matters. But before I pass the microphone to Excellency Savinder Singh, I would like to emphasize that Cambodia remain committed to ensure that the decisions and guidance discussed over the last few days by my fellow ministers will be followed up, and that the policies were discussed today will contribute to all the peoples of ASEAN, and that nobody will be left behind in the alignment to Cambodia's ASEAN chairmanship theme. Cambodia also stands ready to work with Indonesia as the incoming chair of ASEAN and the rest of the ASEAN member states to ensure that the ASEAN economic community's building agenda moves forward and remains a priority. At this point, I would like to invite the Deputy SG Savinder Singh, if he wishes to provide additional comments on the outcomes of the 54th AM meetings and related meetings. You'll go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Excellency, first I want to say that on behalf of the ASEAN Secretariat, on behalf of the entire fraternity of ASEAN, we like to deeply thank your government, Your Excellency, the Cambodian government, the people of Cambodia, for putting a wonderful meeting for the ASEAN economic community. I think the work, the commitment, the outcomes that were achieved from this year's meetings are outstanding. And I think there's a huge amount of recognition that needs to be given to all the officials, both the ASEAN officials as well as your teams, the people of Cambodia, for coming together and making this happen, you know. And so this is a big congratulations from all of us to you. I just want to, you have covered very good ground on many of the key outcomes. What I'll just do is basically very quickly take you through 6 key outcomes that we have achieved. I just want to summarize them. I think first, the ministers actually met over a period of 6 days, and they had very engaging, fruitful discussions chaired by Excellency Pan, and they have met with even business councils, even had very deep engagements with dialogue partners, and they covered wide range of issues. Let me just take you through and add a bit of depth in terms of what Excellency has really kind of outlined.
Yes.
First, in the area of building back better from COVID-19, as you all know, in ASEAN, we still remain one of the brightest spots in global economy. As you can see, we are expecting this year, despite all the challenges, we're going to see a growth of 5% in 2022. And another time next year, we're going to see again a further growth of 5.2%. And all of this is supported by very strong fundamentals. There is also very strong rebound in ASEAN's trade. In fact, by 2021 already, the numbers are showing we have surpassed our pre-pandemic level. Merchandise trade has grown 25% in 2020. And today it stands around, for the whole ASEAN, $3.3 trillion. Even in terms of investments, there was again a huge growth, 42%, an increase from the year before, and it stands around $174 billion in 2021. What the ministers actually highlighted is the need for us to continually have a kind of vigilance over what's happening today in global economy. And I think this is where they actually came forward to support and the continuation of the ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework. And they also want to see the region coming out of the pandemic and also to be dealing with the current economic challenges the region is having. So there was a consolidated effort by the ministers to work towards extending the ACRF as a framework for the region. And there was a special focus given by the ministers to look into food security and energy resilience. Next, second area is really enhancing of our region supply chain. I think this is where the ministers also were very committed in strengthening supply chain connectivity, in helping businesses to reduce costs on business. And there were several major outcomes achieved in Cambodia this week. Number one was the extension of the lifespan of the Memorandum of Understanding on the implementation of non-tariff measures on essential goods. This is extremely very critical, as it kind of demonstrates ASEAN's firm resolve to ensure that during public emergencies there's no disruption of supply chains, especially in the flow of essential goods in our region. The second significant progress made was in trade facilitation, which included the ASEAN Single Window Transit System, ACTS, as well as some of the improvements that have been made in the area of mutual recognition arrangements of authorized economic operators, we call it AEO. All of these are initiatives that are going to alleviate some bottlenecks and also help businesses in our region in order to overcome trade transaction costs, especially in terms of moving goods cross-border. We also actually had a very good discussion on ways in terms of best practices in order to enhance some of the container processing procedures in our ports in the ASEAN. So overall, there was actually a very deep commitment towards ensuring that we have a very resilient region supply chain established in our region. Next, the third area is really harnessing digital transformation. The ministers all acknowledged the role of digital economy as a key driver in our region, and is already seen in its deep contribution. Despite COVID, I think our region have shown that that we need to move very deeply into digital transformation in order to achieve good economic growth for all of us. What was actually exciting was the ministers actually have decided to accelerate the need for us to go deep into a digital economic framework agreement study so that the officials in the ASEAN could start the negotiation of the DIFA agreement as soon as sometime next year. Once finalized, this agreement, the DIFA, it could provide a seamless digital trade ecosystem across our region, and this will definitely unlock immense opportunities for our region's businesses and citizens. Next, fourth, in the area of future-proofing some of our trade agreements, we saw very deep commitments with all the member states in order to continue to broaden, to deepen, and to modernize the economic integration agenda. And this is done through many of the achievements that Minister has mentioned, many of the agreements that we have been able to improve or upgrade, and also to start negotiations in. All this is really about strengthening the existing foundation that ASEAN has built in terms of our many trade agreements. And we always want to work hard to ensure that our region remains open, competitive, and attractive, and it becomes like a single market for production base. Next, fifthly, the ministers, as a focus overall, had a very strong effort being made by everyone in advancing our global ASEAN strategy. And this is where we had done very good outcomes. First, of course, was the finalization of substantial finalization of the UNSFATA agreement, where with a view of a commitment from all ministers that we want to substantively conclude the agreement this year. There was also the very important activation of the ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement to upgrade this agreement to make it even simpler, even more friendly, and even more stronger in trade facilitation. There was also a commitment towards the feasibility study on enhancing our ASEAN-China FTA. Okay, and there was also the inaugural of the RCEP meeting that took place in Siem Reap, and I think a lot of critical discussions on the foundations of RCEP were discussed. Moving next on the sixth area was transition to sustainable economy. Again, this is a very critical area where ASEAN, where ministers came in to support the endorsement of our work program on the support implementation of our framework for circular economy for the ASEAN economic community. This has become one of the priority economic deliverables of Cambodia chairmanship this year. Another area was the finalization. The ministers committed towards finalizing on the concept note for the ASEAN strategy on carbon neutrality. Again, these are all important parts in terms of helping each of our ASEAN member states in our efforts towards achieving our commitments under the Paris Agreement. Ladies and gentlemen, these are some of the large, significant outcomes that we have achieved in these 6 days of hard work that the ministers actually have all guided us in working through all of these important outcomes. And I'm glad to hand over to Chair. Yeah, please.
Thank you.
Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, and we have heard the minister, the chair of the ASEAN Economic Minister meeting, and also the Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN have briefed us all the achievement and all the important result of the meeting. Now I would like to express my sincere thanks to both of the speaker and allows the opportunity for the press to put questions. Perhaps we have a few questions to us. I invite the press to come forward, please.
Thank you for allowing me to ask question. My name is Jithirat from BTV. Your Excellency, I have two questions. The first question is regarding to the RCEP agreement. It is not a coincidence that the RCEP officially emerged during the Cambodia ASEAN Chairmanship in 2012 and officially entered into force also during Cambodia's ASEAN Chairmanship in 2022. Therefore, may I know if Cambodia could make another momentum by urging the rest also parties to finalize their ratification process to make also fully enforced in all parties by no later than 2022. For the second question is, in order to get full benefit from the RCEP agreement, our Prime Minister Somdech Hun Sen raised the initiative to establish RCEP secretariat, and the secretariat should be based in Cambodia. Is all member agree? Through AEM meeting, is there any sign that all the RCEP members support the establishment of RCEP secretariat in Cambodia? Thank you.
Okay, you want to?
Yeah,
I'll talk
maybe
and then-
I'll take the RCEP question.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead. So we will split into the questions here. You'll take the. He's going to take the RCEP question since the RCEP headquarters secretariats. I will talk about that a little bit. We have put forward, as the Samdech Prime Minister's, during his speech, even when he inaugurates and open officially these meetings here in Siem Reap on the 6th, on the 14th, right? 14. He have even stated that Cambodia would wish to have a independent secretariat of RCEP in Cambodia, and we are ready for that. We have put forward with our fellow ministers and RCEP ministers, which are comprised of 15 countries, 10 countries from ASEAN and 5 from China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. They're all there. We are right now, as it stands for, since we haven't get a full operations of RCEP yet at this time. We would like to have at this moment to have a unit temporarily for as a secretariat of RCEP as part of, well, within the ASEAN secretariats in Jakarta. But that doesn't mean we stay there. But what I say here, we all agree that let's work together and have some studies on these make a feasibility studies as soon as possible on these issues, because of the fact that RCEP hasn't been operational and put into place yet. Yeah. So we need to wait a while, but our proposition, Cambodian propositions, is there, and our fellow RCEP ministers accepted it as a propositions, and until we get the RCEP full acceptance, then we can think about those the headquarters, permanent headquarters. But let me assure that it's really important to have an RCEP secretariat separated from ASEAN secretariats. This is why, because it's create more of transparencies and the abilities for us to grow together alongside with ASEAN secretariats, but not within ASEAN secretariats. This is what we emphasize, and Cambodia, as a country that's emerging and developing real fast, would like to showcase our development by having the RCEP secretariats, the future RCEP secretariats in Cambodia. This is what our prime ministers would like to have. And as I mentioned also, that this is a good place for Cambodia. Why? Because Cambodia is at the center of ASEAN, or if I would say RCEP region. So we have a lot of ministers listening to us, and I'm sure that this proposal will still alive and taken by all RCEP ministers. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I just want to add that whatever Excellency Pan has mentioned is true. I think this proposal was very warmly accepted and welcomed by ASEAN, by the economic ministers, the RCEP economic ministers. The gracious offer of Cambodia was very well noted. But currently, what has not has given trust towards the setup of the independent secretariat yet is the issue of the operational viability of the issue right now. So the secretariat itself, the development of the secretariat still needs some time to handle a lot of operational issues, and there are many more other outstanding issues that need to be settled before the discussion comes by all the 15 countries to decide on the setup of the secretariat. So in the interim, as what Secretary Pan have said, Excellency Pan have said, the decision is to continue supporting the special unit in Jakarta at the secretariat that happens to be in Jakarta. But eventually, over the years, and when we are ready in a gradual assessment, the member states, the 15 countries are going to come together and make a decision on where the secretariat will be. And definitely, I think Cambodia's offer is an attractive one and will be given a fair representation when the decision making comes. Thank you, Excellency.
Thank you. Thank you for it.
Please come to.
But
you have further
you answer my first question.
I didn't get the first one. The first one was.
Because two states out of the 15 members out the OSAP that not yet ratified. So,
Sure. RCEP agreement today, I think out of the 15 members, today there are 2 countries. Actually, both of them happen to be ASEAN countries. One of them is Indonesia and one of them is Philippines, who have not ratified the agreement completely. I think Indonesia has already gone through a parliamentary procedure, in fact, this month, and they are actually in the process of finalizing it sometime, I imagine, even before November. Before the summit. So I suspect Indonesia is going to come on board fully ratified in the agreement very soon. But Philippines, as you all know, has also undergone an election this year. It was an election year for them. And today they have a new government, and I think they need a bit of time to look into this matter. I suspect hopefully sometimes by the end of this year or early next year, there will be progress in terms of Philippines also fully ratifying the agreement. So as of now, that's the current situation of the member states' ratification process. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Any further question, please?
Yes, thank you so much, Excellency. My name is U Sukmin. I'm from Thmai Media. I have 2 questions to Excellency. Yeah, my first question, Your Excellency, they have the CLMV in the agenda and leader appeared commitment to bringing development gap between CLMV country and other 6 ASEAN member states. May Your Excellency clearly a bit on what and how the CLMV country would leverage to achieve this objective. Yeah. Second question. After over 10 days of meeting, during which Your Excellency actually lead both multilateral and bilateral discussion. May I kindly know what key legacy the 15th ASEAN Economic Minister meeting? Discuss. Sorry, sir. May I kindly know what? Sorry. I want to repeat again.
Okay, but I think we understand.
Okay.
We understand.
May I kindly know what key legacy the 15th ASEAN meeting under your vice chairmanship was offer for ASEAN in overall? Thank you, sir.
Key milestone of the chairmanship.
Okay, yeah, I see. Thank you for asking me these questions here. Mostly it's related to Cambodia. Let me ask. As you take a look at it, Cambodia has 19 priorities deliverables. We call each country when you assume chairmanship, then there's many objectives you have to do, and some countries like previously some countries like Brunei, they have like 12 PADs, but Cambodia is really ambitious in a sense. We have assumed 19 PADs. This is the objective that we have to work with our ASEAN members and also our development partners also to achieve this year. And we have done a lot, and my DG maybe can tell me. You can take a look in here that we have. I already talked in a press conference here earlier on that we have achieved hopefully by the end of this year, we will be completed all PhDs, the 19 of them. You can take a look at what the 19 PhDs are here, and you can take it out and take a look at that. For the CLMVs, if you recall that the CLMVs are newcomers, but again, newcomers, but it's already how long ago? Usually, the old ASEAN was only 6, right? The old ASEAN 6. And CLMVs is the newcomers and additional comers. And Cambodia was the last one in 1999, was it? And so Cambodia comes and last as the 10 countries in ASEAN. What we call CLMV, why we create CLMV and have sort of separated from the first 6. The CLMV is the newcomers, so we make decisions that we as an ASEAN ministers that we should help each others. We should help each others in developing and bridging the development gaps, because the new ASEAN members, which are CLMVs, three of them are LDCs, least developing countries, excluding Vietnam. So there's issues of development gaps, which include the educations and include infrastructures, soft and hard, legal frameworks, you name it. And we've been working on all the time when we have ASEAN meetings. meetings, we have the CLMV's meetings all the time. So it's rotating among themselves, in a rotation CLMV. And this time here, I think it's Vietnam, is it? Is it Vietnam? So we rotate and ask, and we have our own list of resolutions and requests, if you will. And we are working in within the CLMV's countries. You may recall also that we have CLV, the development triangles also, which is another part, which is a subset of smaller parts, which we would like to develop the Cambodian, Laos, and Vietnam's development triangles at the where all the borders we meet. That include 13 provinces, right? 13 provinces. Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. Total 13 provinces. The CLMV is really important for us to bridge the what we call development gaps, and so we can once we can make it as an agenda to. And we raise it up to our friends or to our old brothers, the 6, to see how we can work together and try to help each other within the ASEAN member states. Or we can raise up to our development partners to work on helping us on these development gaps. So this is what about the CLMVs, and my. Because I'm not sharing that. I wasn't sharing that.
Minister, maybe I can help a little bit.
My vice ministers, Secretary of State, is chairing it. So you can.
I can just very quickly, Minister, if I can tell the press a little bit of the outcomes on the CLMV meetings this year. The 4 countries met, the ministers met. There were 2 things that were endorsed. I think one was the endorsement of the guiding principle for the CLMV action plan, for the new action plan, which starts from 2023 to 2024. In this action plan, the economic development plan for CLMV, it contains 6 strategic areas. First was on trade and investment cooperation. Second was in digital economy development. Third was in the implementation of the regional commitments. The fourth was in pandemic recovery plan. And the fifth is about implementing a plan for the framework for development. And lastly was on human resource development. So that was the first endorsement that took place by the ministers. The second was the endorsement of the implementation plan for the framework of CLMV development. This is a much more longer plan, which is going to be over a period of 8 years, 2023 to 2030. Now, this is a plan that's going to be quite comprehensive, and it is really covering implementation suggestions for the 4 countries in priority areas that I've mentioned before. So this includes things like sectors in connectivity, in sectors with where CLMV has competitive advantage, like agriculture, food and tourism. And the theme behind this development is to make CLMV an advanced global business hub and become a sustainable upper income economies by 2030. So these are the 2 very important areas areas of economic cooperation that were agreed by the ministers. Thank you, Excellency.
Thank you very much. And then I think I would like to mention to you, you can check the priorities, economic deliverables in our press release here. And you can see how many deliverables we have successfully done and how many are still ongoing. But at the end, we will finish, Cambodia will complete the 19 PDs as promised. Thank you.
Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, and my dear media colleagues, I think we exhaust all the questions. And due to the time constraint, I would like to, on behalf of the press, express my deep, sincere thanks to Excellency Minister, the Chairman of the ASEAN Economic Minister, and His Excellency Singh, the Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN, and wish you all the good luck and safe trip, and also enjoy your time in Siem Reap, Cambodia. Thank you very much. I think we should end the press conference, and we should applaud for the successful result of the EM meeting and also the related meeting. Thank you very much, sir.
I can say that it also.
No, it's very good.
This is a good spirit of being allowing.
And we would photocopy and share among each other.
Trong ពេលថ្មីនេះអង្គការសុខភាពពិភពលោកហៅកាត់ថា WHO បានប្រកាសអំពីការ